Hello there. Well, hello. Oh, hey. My name's Cameron. You can also call me by my Chinese name, Kamelong. If you are new here, then welcome to my channel. If you've been here before, then welcome back. Okay, so as the title of this video implies, today I want to talk about the culture shocks that I've commonly experienced here in my first 6 months of living in China. To be exact, I live in Chengdu, China. But there's going to be culture shocks that I kind of experienced all around from my time of living here, my domestic travel experiences, and just every day as a whole. So some of these culture shocks I expected, others definitely took me off guard by a little bit. But overall with this video, I don't want to offend anyone. These are really just things that I've experienced firsthand, and it's not anything that I'm necessarily, I would say, critical of. It's simply just stating this is my experience. I'm getting used to things, and that's really it. And you know, if you ever plan on traveling to China or moving to China, these are some things that you might experience yourself as well. Okay, so number one, this is going to be probably the most common culture shock that most foreigners will experience traveling and living in China, and that is simply the language barrier. So as probably most of you know, the main spoken language in China is Mandarin, or in Chinese, Putonghua. Of course, if you live outside of China and you can speak Mandarin, you're not really gonna have an issue with this at all. But I would say the majority of foreigners, especially Westerners, moving or traveling to China, you're most likely not gonna know Mandarin. Even if you study a little bit, I would say that there's still going to be challenges for sure. So because Mandarin is the primarily spoken language in China, that kind of goes without saying that a lot of people don't speak English. This is, of course, with the exception of some major cities such as Shanghai or tourist areas within different areas of China. That doesn't guarantee people are going to speak English there, but I have noticed a little bit more spoken English in those more touristy areas or big cities like Shanghai. Okay, but now speaking as somebody who lives in China, the biggest, I would say, challenge with the language barrier is just, you know, tasks that you would think are so simple, such as ordering food or talking to somebody in a customer service position that are typically very simple and straightforward in your native language. Those small interactions become much more difficult and challenging. And these are things that you typically do on a daily basis. And outside of communication with others, there's also, you know, the apps that you might need to use on a daily basis, which are mostly and predominantly in Chinese. This includes apps to order food, WeChat, Alipay, Taobao, which is kind of like Chinese Amazon, things like that. Luckily though, a lot of these apps now I find actually have in-app translation, which is really helpful. Such as Alipay, which is one of the main electronic payment apps that you would use here in China. There's kind of like a little hover button that you can hit translate, and it'll automatically translate everything on the page as long as it's live text. Even RedNote recently, with the influx of TikTok refugees from America, as they call them, flooding into the app, RedNote was very quick to add a translation option, so you can now read people's comments easily by translating it to your native language. So that's super helpful. So I'm hoping that more and more apps will start to include those translation options because it is very helpful. Maybe not so helpful trying to learn Chinese, but it's definitely helpful with making those challenging daily tasks a little bit more easier. And then back just to like that daily communication with people, you know, sometimes it can just lead to some funny or awkward situations. Like, you know, you might end up ordering like the wrong food, or you might ask for directions and just totally end up in the wrong place. And yeah, so it's kind of like small things like that that you might experience. But overall, I think just living here, I'm getting more and more used to it. I kind of expect that a lot of these things are going to be challenges, but because I'm so used to them, they almost don't really feel like challenges anymore, if that makes sense. They're kind of just expected experiences. But also, by putting yourself out there and trying to communicate with others and trying to learn the language, these things are getting easier and easier. And really, it's also a good way to learn the language overall. I do have to give really big credit to my girlfriend Lou, because she has helped me a lot with a lot of these daily challenges, especially communicating with, you know, like delivery drivers, or even, you know, doing things at like the like visa offices or immigration offices, those types of things. She's really been helpful, so I really appreciate that from her. I'm really lucky to have her to help me with these kind of things. Okay, number 2, lots and lots of people. Now, I want to be very careful and clear here. This is not a complaint or anything about Chinese people in general. This is simply just stating that there are a lot of people here, which leads to different outcomes that you might not experience in your home country. This is sort of similar to the language barrier point that I made. Daily things become a bit more challenging, or I guess interesting, because of this, you know, like riding the train, the subway, going out for a walk, going to the mall, things like that. There's just lots of people compared to what I'm used to back home. So if you're an introverted type of person, like myself, you know, these things can push you out of your comfort zone a little bit, and test your comfort zone. But really, this is something that I'm quickly getting used to. It is a culture shock, but it's slowly becoming something that's just really normal and expected. I mean, China is the biggest country in the world. It has the highest population of 1.4 billion people. So this was actually one of the more culture shocks that I was expecting. And it was one of the first things I noticed when I traveled to China for the first time in April of 2024. But you know, even though I expected this culture shock, it can still be overwhelming at times. But I just want to say again, I'm getting really used to it, and it doesn't test my comfort zone as much as it used to. Okay, now number 3, spitting and mindfulness. Okay, so first let's touch on spitting. This is one that I probably hear most commonly from foreigners who have traveled or live in China as a complaint. Okay, so if you are a Chinese person who is watching this video right now, I seriously don't mean any offense at all. I just want to say, as foreigners growing up, we were always told that spitting is something that's gross, and it's like rude to do in public or around others. So it's typically a behavior that we were taught from a very young age not to engage in. So I think as foreigners coming to China for the first time, it is definitely one of the biggest culture shocks. It's something that I find a lot of foreigners have a very hard time getting used to. Now, when I first came to China, I as well was very thrown off by this. And yeah, I mean, like I said, we were always taught that spitting is this really gross thing. So, you know, it really did get to me quite a bit, if I'm being totally honest. But having lived here for a little over half a year now, it is something that this might shock you, that I've actually gone mostly used to. And now I kind of just think it's funny, I guess. I kind of just laugh it off when it happens, more on the inside rather than the outside. But yeah, I'm totally used to it by now. And it's funny because I know a lot of foreigners who have lived here for years and they are still not used to it. But somehow I got used to it in a short amount of time and just kind of accepted it as something that just happens on a daily basis. Also, one thing that I learned recently, I don't know how true this is, it was just from my own research, but apparently clearing your throat is some sort of a practice or belief rooted in traditional Chinese medicine. So that might explain why it's such a big thing here. You know, because traditional Chinese medicine, of course, is you know, something that's very important to the people of China. So if that actually has its roots in traditional Chinese medicine, then that very well could explain the spitting. Okay, so along with spitting, I also mentioned mindfulness. This one, again, is something that I don't mean any offense on. It's just from my own observation compared to back home in Canada. there seems to be a lack of mindfulness. I would say more specifically in terms of space. And this could be because of the sheer amount of people that are here and how many crowds there are in general, but there seems to be a lot of shoving and pushing without saying excuse me. And also there tends to be a lot of cutting in line. That's one of the ones that definitely took me a while to get comfortable with. I would say in a lot of ways I'm still not. It is something that deeply within me kind of aggravates me, but I am getting used to it, and it doesn't happen all the time, but it definitely happens a lot more than it does back in Canada. You know, I might be standing in line at the airport to go through security, or standing in line to get onto the bullet train, and you know, I'm standing there in what I think is a line, and then people just shove themselves right in front of me, and I'm like, yo, I was standing right here. What's that about? But honestly, I think it all comes down to just a different sense of personal space. Like, I think it's simply just that, at least from what I gather. And really, I see it as one of those things where you kind of just need to just go with the flow, and honestly, maybe even adapt some of those same tactics. Now, I'm not saying to, you know, just start cutting in line for the heck of it. I'm just saying more so, you know, go with the flow, just accept that it happens, because again, personal space, it works a little bit differently here. And also, when I say developing the same tactics, I mean, you know, if you're going to the subway station and it's really crowded, just work your way through the crowd. I don't think excuse me is expected as much here as it is back home in Canada. So don't stress about that too much. Just try to work your way through the crowd and get on the train, and that's it. Just go with the flow. But it does take some getting used to. Like I said, I'm still not fully used to it. I'm trying my best, and I'm getting there. I'm getting there slowly but surely. You know, back in Canada, if you cut somebody in line, let's say you're at like a coffee shop or a Tim Hortons, and you cut in front of somebody, I would say like 9 times out of 10 that person's gonna say something, and it might lead to some conflict. Or simply an apology, but here, most people would just not say anything if somebody cuts in front of them, or they might just cut in front of the person who cut in front of them. Okay, now number 4, being an introvert in an extrovert environment. So this point differs from the first point I had about the amount of people that are here in China. This is more about, I would say, social interaction. So people here in China really value social gatherings, group meals, or overall just a really lively atmosphere. And also in these social gatherings, there tends to be baijiu involved, which is Chinese white wine, tea, or, you know, just overall group interactions. And it can be really difficult to decline these things without feeling rude. This can definitely be a challenge for the introverted type of person like myself, where you really gain a lot of your energy from your solo time or your independent time. These social interactions can be quite draining. You know, with it being such a big part of the culture, it happens quite often, and as I said, you might feel inclined to always accept because you might feel rude if you don't. But just like the other points that I mentioned, this is something that I am slowly becoming used to, and like this doesn't mean that I dislike social gatherings. I still like social gatherings. You know, maybe I would consider myself more of an introverted extrovert type of person, but still, I think the issue, or not really issue, but I guess the challenge comes from these social gatherings happening a lot more often than I might be used to. But I think as long as you use your alone time wisely, and you really use that time to restore your energy, your mental energy, then this is something that I think you would get used to. You would definitely get used to after a while. But if you're a totally extroverted person, then this should provide no challenge to you at all, and you're gonna be having the time of your life. Not to say that I'm not, but it's gonna come to you a lot more easily. The last point that I have on being an introvert in an extroverted environment is simply just being a foreigner in China. You know, you might have people coming to approach you to speak to you in English or maybe even Chinese, which can be a challenge if you don't speak Chinese. Or they might just simply want to add you on WeChat to be your friend or to just talk to you. I would say for me, this is honestly not that big of an issue. And it's not something that really bugs me, actually. You know, of course, I want to meet new people and make new friends. But there are those moments where, you know, you really just want to be in your own head, or you might be going through something emotionally, and it's really hard to match the energy of someone who's really excited to come up to talk to you and want to be friends or just make conversation. But regardless of that, I'm happy when people come up to want to talk to me, you know, and it obviously takes a bit of, you know, courage just to go talk to somebody random, make friends with them, even if a lot of people here are extroverted. Yeah, I definitely commend that. Also, I've mentioned a lot in my past videos that my girlfriend Lu and I, we actually have a Chinese TikTok or Douyin account, which you can see a little screenshot of that right here. And I think we're at maybe like a little over 400,000 fans. So it is quite often that we have fans coming up to say hi. And I always appreciate those moments. I love when fans come to say hi. It's really nice to meet people who enjoy our videos, and everyone's always so kind when they come up to say hi, and we usually tend to take photos together, and it's a great experience. So you know, if you're ever traveling in China, or if you are a fan from our TikTok and watching this right now, if you see us out in public, feel free to come say hi to us. We definitely like to meet our fans, so appreciate you guys. Okay, this one is gonna shock you guys, but the fifth and last culture shock is food. Now, that was a little bit of a, let's call it clickbait title. I love Chinese food, absolutely love Chinese food with a passion. The culture shock that I get from food is not about the food that is available here, it's more about the food that isn't available here. So while I absolutely love Chinese food, there are a lot of foods here that I can't find that I was very used to eating back home. I mostly grew up in Toronto or around Toronto, and Toronto is known as the most multicultural city in the entire world. So we had access to really good food from all around the world, and a lot of it being very authentic as far as I know. There are two specific dishes that I absolutely loved eating back home in Toronto, and I would have them every week pretty much. First one being shawarma, number two being Caribbean food or jerk chicken. Oh, even just mentioning them, like I feel my mouth watering. Oh man, I want jerk chicken so badly. There are some things here that is close to shawarma specifically, but it's still not quite the same. One experience I had with shawarma was actually a very bad experience. It was less shawarma and more just like a basic American style chicken wrap, I guess. So that was a very disappointing experience. And as for jerk chicken, as far as I know, you can barely find that all across the country. I've done some research. There was a place in Shanghai that I think some people used to go to, but then it closed down. From my research, the only other place I've seen people mention that has pretty legit jerk chicken in China is a restaurant called Three Little Birds in Guangzhou, China. So I think I'm gonna have to pay that a visit one of these days and see how that is. It would definitely be a lot cheaper than flying back to Toronto to get jerk chicken. But I do have to mention there is still a lot of international food available here. I live in Chengdu, and there's quite a bit that we've already had. We've had American barbecue, we've had American burgers, we've had like proper Italian pizza. What else is there? I think there's even some like taco restaurants that we can go check out. So there are definitely options here, but it's more of those things that I was used to eating on an ongoing basis that I'm having trouble finding. So that's taking some time to get used to. But on the flip side, living here in China, there are a lot of local cuisines that would just be so hard to find abroad. Even being in Toronto, a city that's so multicultural and we have lots of different cuisines there, there are some local Chinese cuisines that I have never heard of in my entire life until moving here. As an example, you might think of hot pot when you think of Sichuan food, but have you ever heard of ka bing, which is this little bread thing that you open up, and then there's this meat that's mashed up with some sort of a grain and cilantro, and it's spicy and meaty and fragrant, and it's in this little bun thing. It's from a city called Leshan, which is quite close to Chengdu. But you might have never heard of that unless you've traveled or lived in China. I seriously just wanted an opportunity to mention ka bing because it's one of my new favorite foods recently. So if you're ever in China, you absolutely need to try ka bing. If you can't go to Leshan to try it, you should still be able to find it in some of the bigger cities. So lastly, less about my personal experience, but more towards you guys. If you aren't a fan of certain flavors, such as, like fermented things like fermented tofu, or intense levels of spice, or things like intestines, you will definitely have a bit of a culture shock here, that's for sure. I know, those types of things isn't everybody's cup of tea, no pun intended. Now, you don't necessarily have to eat those things when you come here, but you will definitely find yourself in social situations where you might be a little bit pressured to try those things. But I just recommend keeping an open mind. Try them. If you don't like them, you don't like them. If you do like them, then great, eat more. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed that list. I hope that you were able to find some insightful information in there, whether you plan on traveling to China or moving to China. And just remember again that, these culture shocks or culture shocks in general are specific to each person and how they react to the new environment that they're living in. So overall, I don't mean any offense in any of these points that I made. They are really just from my own personal experience. And so if you're a Chinese person who lives in China and watching this video, I just want to let you know that this is really from my perspective as a foreigner, and I wanted to be as honest and candid as possible about that. So even for you, I hope that you were able to gain some insightful information from a foreigner's perspective on experiencing living in China for the first time. Okay, and lastly, I would like to know if you guys have ever lived abroad and what culture shocks came along with those experiences. So please leave those comments down below, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button and notification bell. There are a lot more videos on the way, and if you are new to this channel, then please check out some of my other videos. I also do more of a cinematic vlog style type of video that you might enjoy. So please check that out if you have a chance. And with that being said, I hope you all have a great rest of your day or night, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.